Hi folks. I'm proud that for the first 5 years of my tenure, including last year, I voted for an on-time, fiscally responsible budget that controlled the growth of government spending and contained no new taxes. I could not, however, support the budget that passed the House and Senate this year. Please allow me to explain. Many of you know that last year the budget negotiations dragged on and on. It wasn't because the legislature didn't do its job. We did. It was because the governor vetoed 3 budgets and fought against taxpayers for 9 months, desperately trying to win massive sales and income tax increases. We stood firm, and the governor finally folded. It was a great win for taxpayers. I don't want to minimize the fiscal difficulty last year's impasse caused some health and human service agencies and certain school districts. There was some hardship. However, all of those entities were eventually paid, and most Pennsylvanians never noticed an impact at all. Imagine now that we had adopted the billions in new taxes Governor Wolf wanted. All of us would have felt the impact right away, and there would have been no remedy or relief. Last year proved without a doubt that it is better to have a good budget that's late rather than an on-time budget that's bad. I wish it was a lesson the legislature had taken to heart. Unfortunately, it didn't. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Whenever you hear a politician say, "We must do something," grab your wallet, he's coming after your money, and the taxpayer always loses. That's precisely what happened this year. In the name of not having another extended impasse, the Capitol was flooded with cries to just get something done as close to June 30th as possible. Forget the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Folks, that is no way to craft public policy. The budget finally adopted increased spending by a whopping $1.29 billion, or almost 4 times the rate of inflation. This is unacceptable. Most fiscally conservative economists endorse a concept called TABOR, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. TABOR limits the increases in government spending to the rate of inflation plus population growth. In previous years, we met TABOR guidelines. Not this year. We, or rather those who voted for this monstrosity, I did not, blew right through TABOR. The 2016/2017 budget increases spending by the highest amount since liberals gained control of the legislature in 2006 under the spendthrift tenure of Ed Rendell. How was this massive new spending financed? If you guessed new taxes and risky borrowing schemes, you'd be right. One of the tricks employed was borrowing $200 million from other state accounts, money that must be paid back and will only make budget shortfalls in subsequent years much worse. This stands in stark contrast to a plan I introduced earlier this year that would have cut spending, not increased it. The cuts would have been made across the board by 1%. Unfortunately, my plan was brushed aside in the urge to just get something done. When you are planning your family budget at home, you can't just say, "Well, we'll borrow $200 from the grocery fund next month to make payments on a new car." But that's equivalent to what this budget does at the state level. Such shell games can only last so long. Where are the new taxes? There are many, but a big portion comes from higher cigarette taxes. At first blush, you might think more taxes on cigarettes might not be too bad, especially if you're not a smoker. Here's why it's a terrible idea. The budget raises the cigarette tax by $1 per pack, a steep jump. Statistics tell us that this will target our poorest citizens. Worse, it will likely open the door to a black market with ties to organized crime and terrorist organizations. High cigarette taxes encourage criminals to smuggle cigarettes from out of state. This underground trafficking funds a bevy of illegal activities. Our cigarette taxes will now be $3 a pack higher than those sold in West Virginia or Maryland. People living in the Philly area would be spending $4.25 per pack more than their neighbors in Delaware. Those who don't make the short drive to the first state to load up their cars with cartons of their favorite smokes will be tempted to purchase from those who do. We've seen this in other states with high cigarette taxes like New York, where crime syndicates smuggle cigarettes from low-tax states and siphon the profits to fund illegal violent activity. It's ironic that some who argue increasing cigarette taxes will encourage citizens to give up their smoking habit, failing to recognize this tax increase makes state government's spending habit worse. We should be working to reduce state spending, not raising taxes on hardworking men and women in our state. Oh, And you know how I said they cried, just pass something by June 30th? Well, the budget was still late. The spending plan was railroaded through the House and Senate before the deadline, but the revenue package wasn't considered until weeks later. If it weren't for a huge uproar from those of us in the taxpayer caucus, you might have been stuck with a tax on the natural gas you used to heat your home that the governor and Senate tried to sneak in during the interim. Fortunately, we stopped them cold, pardon the pun. All in all, I wish we would have held out for a better deal. We did not, but I wanted you to know that I will continue to fight for you, the taxpayer. Until next time, in God we trust.